Welcome back. And when we talk about the president's position bumping up against a cultural demographic change, this is what we mean. According to new polling from the Washington Post, nearly 70% of those respondents say the death of George Floyd represents a broader problem with policing rather than an isolated incident. And there are now growing calls for police reform as the protests continue on our streets. As the New York Times reports, one powerful obstacle are police unions. Quote, they aggressively protect the rights of members accused of misconduct, often in arbitration hearings that they have battled to keep behind closed doors. And they have also been remarkably effective at fending off broader change, using their political clout and influence to derail efforts to increase accountability. We are so happy to have back with us again tonight Brittany Packnett-Cunningham, activist and former member of President Obama's 21st Century Policing Task Force. We also welcome to the broadcast Ronald Davis. He was executive director of that very task force. Before that, he served at the Justice Department, and before that, he was in law enforcement for 28 years as a police officer and as a chief of department. And by way of welcoming you, Chief, I would like to begin with you. To paraphrase the song, what are police unions good for, and how are they making, on the other side of the equation, how are they making the situation worse?
Well, first, let me start, Brian. Thank you for having me on the show. I think the issue of police union, we really need to take a very careful look. When I think about police unions, I think about the phrase power perceived is power achieved. Too often we give police unions powers that they should not have, and that is very inappropriate. What I mean by that is, and I think I applaud Brittany and her campaign and understanding more and more about these contracts. We can have thousands of people march and demonstrate, justifiably so, for these tragedies. But when we go to the council meeting to ratify the contract that provides the provisions that inhibit or prohibit accountability, there's two people in the audience. So the first thing I think we have to do with the unions is realize that the job of the union is to represent the membership and to negotiate for their working conditions, no different than any other union. We have taken that too far. We have changed working conditions to translate to things like how fast you can interview somebody after they use deadly force, whether they can see a body camera video after killing somebody. So a part of I think the reform effort has to be to reevaluate these contracts, look at the state police officer Bill of Rights laws, and to make sure that we are obligated to provide due process to the officers. We should do that. But that due process cannot result in constitutional violation to the community. And right now, too often, those provisions are a hindrance to the chief. They tie the chief's hand. They prevent the chief, he or she, from disciplining officers that need to be disciplined. And it operates within a system that then allows bad officers to maintain their job and their employment and continue to plague the industry.
Brittany, same question to you, please.
Well, I'm glad to be back, and I could not agree with Ron more. We did a lot of work together and had these conversations, and I think it's necessary that your audience is hearing someone who has a lifetime of experience in law enforcement saying precisely these things. Look, I am a former union teacher. I support collective bargaining. I think it is one of the critical pieces of the infrastructure of this nation. And yet, we have police unions that are standing as the exception to that rule, because as Ron already said, they continuously allow themselves to overextend the power that they should be having. There should never be a union that allows someone to actually break the law, see the evidence that will be used against them, and actually give them additional time to get their story together, because no one can actually question them. These are things that we see pushed by unions and passed by state legislatures and in city councils. And Ron is absolutely right. We have to make sure that as citizens, we hold all of these unions accountable, that we check and see everything that is in those police union contracts, that we make it our business to make sure that unions recognize that the just powers of the government are derived from the consent of the governed, and police unions actually have to recognize that.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.